Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to episode 3 of It Takes Work. Tonight's episode, The Process to the Promise. I'm Stacy.
I'm Jelani.
And we are happy to be here with you all tonight. We hope you all enjoy this episode. And we thank you so much for the feedback you've given us on the other two. And so we're just going to get right into it. Process to the Promise. I'll start with this. We hear a lot about the promises of God, right? And we attach ourselves, at least I can speak for me, I cannot speak for anyone else, but we attach ourselves to the idea of all of these things that we want being promises from God. And in that, you kind of deceive yourself because you set this kind of vision in your head and you attach to it and you think, yes, this is what God wants for me and this is what I'm going to have. And then the reality of life, the reality of your situation actually ends up being not what you thought. And so what I've learned is the promises of God are tied to his sovereign knowledge. And you learn about those promises as you are obedient to him. Now, there are promises that God will speak directly to your spirit. And you can take hold of those. But I found as far as we go, there was a promise for us from God that we had no idea about. I had no idea. And it wasn't until we yielded to him. That's a good term, right?
Yep.
It wasn't until we yielded to him. We started out, doing whatever it was that we were supposed to do. We started out, we got married.
What is that prototypical married couple?
We both worked. We took care of the house. We did a lot of the things, but we didn't know what the promise of God looked like for us because we were just busy doing it
our way,
in our own strength, in our own understanding. And when God was introduced into the dynamic, and the introduction of God into our relationship was based on our decision. I don't think we think about that. I think we think that God being a part of our anything is automatic, but you literally have to make the decision to choose God. You literally have to say, I want God to be the head of, I want God to be the priority of, and the truth is, that wasn't us. We didn't do that. We didn't start out leading with God's direction. And so, therefore, that's where the process comes from. The process started when we got together, and that's where the grace of God comes in, right? Like, we were out there doing our own thing. Wouldn't you say? Just living what we thought was our best life. We had no idea. And God allowed the ground to get shaky. He allowed things to crumble. He allowed a lot of things to be exposed. And when we made the decision and said, we need God a part of this with us, that is when the process began to work in our favor. Because prior to that, we were processing ourselves for a demise. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think we was actually, instead of operating as one unit, we were still operating under the individual mindset instead of one marriage, one couple.
And so because of that, we ended up in this space of, it was a lot of confusion. It was a lot of confusion until we decided to just really walk with God. And then walking with God, and as things begin to unfold about us as individuals, as we began to learn about who we were and what God's expectation was for us as a married couple, that is when we learned that there was a promise in heaven for us from God. So that kind of debunks the, everything you want is a promise from God. Everything you want is a promise from God. I
That's
want
the
to
case.
be.
Everybody would be happy.
Everybody would be millionaires. Everybody would have, whatever their heart's desires because of that. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And it doesn't say that God wants you to be miserable. God wants you to be lonely. It doesn't say that. What God wants for us really is the best for us. And I had to learn that. And then when you experience what God wants for you, you think back on the things you thought you wanted, you realize, golly, that's what makes you say stuff like, God, I'm glad you didn't give me what I was asking for. Right? Yeah. So what did the process to the promise that is us today look like for you?
To my back then, or what we?
Yeah, the process that led to where we are today.
I would say it was revealing to me, eye-opening. It made me kind of look a little deeper in myself and appreciate who God created me to be. And it debunked a lot of the ideas of what I thought I should be compared to what God knew who I really was.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I started accepting who He created me to be, flaws and all, then I was at peace, true peace. And I had like this appreciation for who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to compare myself to nobody anymore. Didn't really care to be anybody else but me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most relaxing and carefree feelings you could ever have.
I agree.
And that's all you really ask from God, is to be your original, authentic self at all times, and to bring to whatever God put in you to a relationship, to either enhance it, better it, or to just help people out so they don't stumble over all the stuff you stumbled over.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So that's why He allows certain people to experience hardships or go through really hard trials and tribulations, because He knows those people can take it, and they're gonna come out better than when they went into the trial, because they're gonna be able to, bestow that knowledge onto everybody that He puts into their path.
Well, that says it. And see, for me, the process was. So I have to agree with you. It was revealing, because it taught me a lot about me. And let me say this: we're still in a process.
Oh, the process never ends. No, you always go through it.
Yeah, because the promise truly will not come to pass until God. I mean, the promise is. I'll say this: it evolves. It comes. It's ever evolving. I don't know. Hey, we're gonna keep it real on this good here. It takes work. I don't even know what the word is I want to use.
It's a growing process.
Yeah, it's a living thing. It happens, as you navigate and as you grow, then the promise of God, more components of it become real to you, and they're evident in your life. And so for me, the process at the beginning to get to the promise of who we are today, what we see today as a couple, what we're experiencing today is the fruit of a promise that we processed through. When we started walking with God together, there were a lot of things that happened. There was a lot of changing. There was a lot of healing. And as a result of that, we were able to see, there's levels to how we love each other. And a really good thing for me is He took away the romanticized idea that I had about love. Because the truth was, I thought that love consisted of constant doting. You're constantly doting on each other. There's just this flowers and roses and butterflies flying around your heads and your hearts. And every time you look at each other, you're just like, oh. And I appreciate God for snapping me out of it because he wanted me to see that there was so much more to it. The process really taught me how to really look for substance, wouldn't you say? Because a lot of the things we did were on surface.
Mm-hmm.
So the promise, the part of the promise that we are living out today, what would you say that is?
Being a witness to other couples to help them get to that level that God is calling them to get to.
And what level are we at?
What level are we at? I think we're at the level of he's kind of got us where we got a little bit, emphasis on a little bit of knowledge and wisdom to us now, and understanding of how to build on and maintain a relationship with not only with us but with him too, which is always important because you always want that triangle to be still intact.
Mm-hmm. Good job. Because, and I wanted you to really dig into that because I think that's the thing we want to really focus on too, is you go through processing to arrive to a certain outcome. And then when you arrive to that particular outcome, you process some more because there is so much that we still have to learn about ourselves and about each other. As God, delivers us from things, shows us things about ourselves, as we transform, as our character changes, then God will be like, okay, now you're mature enough to learn this about yourself that I got to work on. And so you're in another phase of processing. And I don't want people to get discouraged and think that that's what all it consists of. Because I'm going to be honest with you, we're living out more and enjoying the fruits of the promise more than we are struggling through a process. It's just that now we understand that when God enacts that process in our life, we yield to it. We listen to him and whatever he's telling us to do, we make those necessary changes. And we just enjoy the fruits of the promise.
And also stop fighting what he wants for you. And stop making it about what you want from him.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you start doing that, the more things will start opening up for you.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I think a lot of people get lost at that point right there because, we're selfish by nature. So we always go want it our way, the way we want it. We want it like in a Burger King fashion.
Uh-huh.
So once you learn to just completely yield, like, okay, God, I'm tired of keep tripping and falling on my face every 5 seconds because I'm trying to do it the way I want to do it. So you go ahead and do it. I'll do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, you'll be surprised how many things will start opening up to you on every level.
Yes, absolutely. And that's real talk. And I think that's the thing that we don't take enough time to really acknowledge when we have an idea in our mind that needs to be transformed. It needs to be changed, a mindset shift. I know for me, a lot of the things that I thought, I thought that was the biggest thing for me. It was, this is who I am. And I have arrived. I'm just being honest. I really thought I had arrived. Ooh, yeah, Lord have mercy. Oh. But I thought I had arrived, and it's nothing worse than being humbled by God. You don't want that. It's painful. Now, the good thing about being humbled by God is you ain't gonna ever go back to the way you used to be again. It's a finished work. But God gives you so many opportunities to humble yourself before he steps in and gets involved. And so because of that, there were a lot of things that I had associated with being the promise of God as it related to our relationship that were not. They were things that Stacy wanted. And God was like, you know, it's like in the IT world, we have this thing called nice to haves. So when you are doing requirements for a customer, you know what they have a need for. These are the things they need. But then as you are talking through the things that they need, they begin to articulate some things that they want. And we call those things nice to have. So what I was doing was there were things that I needed, and God knew I needed it. And He was going to supply that need. But I was trying to inject the wants. This is what I want, and align it with it being a promise of God. And so our process of all of the challenges that we went through, communication wise, uh, spiritually, mentally, connecting with each other, uh, that whole thing talked to me more about me than it did about him. Just like whatever he went through in the processing spoke to him about him and not so much about me. But when we came together with our little stuff and all of the changes we were making, we realized that was what those were the tools we needed so that we could move forward and walk in this promise that God has given us. So the promise for me today looks like we have 3 children who won't have to struggle with I don't know what's the word, settling in love relationships, or phoniness in love relationships. Like I saw a lot of that growing up. I saw people who, struggled with each other, really didn't like each other, but portrayed to the outside world that it was all peaches and cream and lovey-dovey, you know. And so our children, thankfully, as they grow into young adults, now only have the narrative of their parents who literally surrender to God. Now, let me go ahead and give this disclaimer. We do not get it right every day.
Every hour.
We do not get it right. Right. It literally is a, oh shoot, conscious. Wait, pull yourself together. But we're living out the promise that, we wanted our children to see and have a real tangible example of love without the trauma. Is a good word?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah. And so now who we are today and who will be 10 years from now. Like right now, whatever it is God is processing in us. And I'll say for me, the processing for me is improving how I communicate. We're good in our communication, wouldn't you say? But you can always be better. So that's the processing that I'm in. Communication, the process that I'm in is accepting and being excited about the growth in us. So that whatever that other part of the promise is for us 5 years from now, 10 years from now, heck, 6 months from now, I am mature enough to be able to handle and maintain. What are some things you're processing through right now that you feel comfortable with sharing with our It Takes Work folks here?
I would say the biggest thing is stepping out of my comfort zone. Learning to stretch myself and not get into a place where I want to just be comfortable with the things I know instead of the things God wants me to. Which could be kind of awkward and uncomfortable because you don't know where you're gonna land in certain situations that He's taking you in, but you just gotta trust that He's got you. Just like this podcast. You tell me that I'll be doing a podcast as quiet as I am and non-talkative as I am, I would have laughed in your face as you walked off, but got one stretch.
And this is a part of a process to a promise that God made to you.
Yeah.
And we hope that, the content that we share here is helpful. The goal is, just in case, if this is your first time listening to one of our episodes, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the other ones or you didn't feel led, and this is the one you landed on, the goal of this is not just for us to hear ourselves talk. We talk to each other. We talk. The goal is if whatever God has done in our lives, however he has helped us understand the dynamic of relationships, and I don't just mean our love relationships. We've learned a lot about business relationships. We've learned a lot about family relationships. We've learned a lot about, different types of relationships, and when we were dating and when we were, engaged, those facets of relationships, we learned a lot. And so we're here to share what we learned with the hopes that
even if it's just one person, that's all we care about.
If it just helps one of you, then we have done well. And so, yeah, that's what this was about for us. And so, being able to talk about, and I hope that we brought the point home, the process to the promise. The process was, we didn't know the value of the process until we allowed God to be God in our entire relationship. Our lives as individuals, our lives as a collective couple, our lives as parents, our lives as husband and wife to each other. God had to be all up and through for us to understand what we were processing through. And then from that, we are now enjoying, it's almost like a Cracker Jack box of sorts. It's a promise. It's packaged in a big box that says promise. But as you're obedient, and as we grow, and as we change, and as we mature, there's more that comes out of that promise, And the promise that we are living out today is a generational curse has been broken in our bloodline, where our children don't associate committed love relationships with trauma, committed love relationships with a word that I heard Jerry Flowers say from Redefine TV. Redefine TV, he said, lethal loyalty. So our children don't have to navigate through things like lethal loyalty, or they don't have to settle, or they don't have to front, when they go out, because they have an example of, hey, if I put it in God's hands, and I trust what he's asking of me, then what I yield from it will be the absolute best for me. And so that is the promise that Jelani and I are currently living out. And now we're in a processing where he's being processed through his comfort zones. And there are a lot of things that Jelani is doing that are outside of his comfort zone. The things you're doing with your business, that really breaks a lot of your comfort zone, because you have to engage with people.
True.
You have to consider their needs and not just do the work, because you're used to doing the work and being like, boom, I don't need no fanfare, I don't need no nothing, I did my part. But now God is like, now I want you to do the work, and I want you to be able to articulate to those individuals, what you've done. And then for me, I'm currently just processing through number one, being receptive to what God is doing, and really just opening myself up to say, yes.
True. Sometimes that's a battle in itself, right there.
So we are so glad that y'all tuned in with us tonight. The process to the promise. Y'all stay tuned. We are working on what episode 4 is going to be, coming to you in June. And we just want to thank you guys for hanging in there with us. For those of you that are viewing us on other outlets and listening to us from other outlets, we appreciate it. And listen, if you got a question for us, make sure y'all hit us up on IG. Our IG handle is ITW_it takes work. Hit us up. Send us a DM. Send us your questions, because we want to make sure that we are sharing information, talking about things that matter to you, And also, it's worth your time. Send us an email at ittakeswork.itw@gmail.com. ittakeswork.itw@gmail.com. Send us your questions. Send us your stories. If you have anything you want to share that you want us to put out on the air, let us know. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys again in June. I know I am late, but I want to go ahead and say a happy belated Mother's Day to the mothers that celebrated this month, because we will make sure that we do the same for the wonderful fathers that are going to be celebrated next month. Congratulations to all of the rising seniors, to all of the seniors who have graduated already and those that are preparing to graduate. And we just wish you all well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys in June.
Definitely in June.
June. All right, y'all take care.
See you guys next time.
Bye.